In this video, we're going to look at a different way of combining functions. This is called a composition of functions, and it's expressed like this: f of g of x. What this means is you're taking g of x and plugging it into f of x. So anywhere in the first function where there's an x, you're going to replace that x with the entire function of your second one. Now, let's look at an example. We have three functions: f of x, g of x, and h of x. F of g of x means I take g of x, which is x minus 1, and anywhere in f of x that there's an x, I'm going to replace this x with this expression. So that means I'm going to replace this x with x minus 1, so x squared plus 8, and then simplify. So x minus 1 means you multiply it by itself. I'm going to use the box method on this one just because I can. X times x is x squared. X times negative 1 is negative x. Same here. Negative 1 and negative 1 multiplied to be 1. So this means I have, and I don't need parentheses anymore, I have x squared minus 2x plus 1 and then plus 8. So altogether, x squared minus 2x plus 9. It's a quadratic, so my domain is all real numbers. There's no restrictions in this domain. Now if I go the other way, sometimes it's easier one way than another. So now what I'm going to take is plug f of x into g of x. So in g of x, it's x minus 1. So instead of x, I'm going to replace that with x squared plus 8, and then minus 1 to continue g of x. Well, there's nothing else I'm going to be doing to this expression. It's not squared. There's no number on the outside to distribute. So really all I'm going to do is combine those like terms. So I get x squared plus 7. And same as the previous one, domain would be all real numbers. No restrictions in your domain. So the order does matter. This one, we are plugging g of x into the first function. This one, we were plugging in f of x. So it is a little bit different. Now on the next one, we're just doing a couple more practices. Okay, we can still see that. So h of g of x means I'm going to plug g of x into h of x. So h of x is 5x minus 3. So for this x here, I'm replacing this x with g of x, x minus 1. And then to continue this, I have the minus 3. So to simplify this one, I have to distribute this 5. That's going to give me 5x minus 5 minus 3, which gives me 5x minus 8. This is a linear function, so domain on this one would also be all real numbers. Alright, so put this down here so we can still see the functions. G of h of x means I'm going to plug h of x into g of x. So this one goes into that one. So g of x is x minus 1, but instead of x, I'm going to write h of x, which is 5x minus 3. So x minus 1. Now, again, nothing to distribute, nothing to square, cube, nothing like that, so just combine like terms to get 5x minus 4. Now, we can also evaluate composition of functions for specific values. So what I mean is this: if I have g of h of 2. What that means is I'm doing g of h of 2. And there's more than one way you can work this. One way to work it is to go ahead and do your composition first, then plug in the number. So I'm going to show you that way. Now, when we did g of h of x, that was the last one we did. We get 5x minus 4. So this part was 5x minus 4. We just worked that one. So I can do the composition and then plug in the value to get 6. But let's say it was a really long, complicated expression, and you didn't really want to work that out. There is another way you can do the composition of functions for a specific value. And that is to plug your number into the second function. So plug 2 into h of x. And then whatever number you get for that, plug that into g of x. So another way to work this is start by plugging 2 into h of x. So 5x minus 3 gives me 7. Then you take the 7 and plug that into g of x. 7 minus 1 gives me 6. I get the same answer either way. It's just a different way of working. This method can actually be a little bit faster if you have something really long and complicated that you are plugging into. So it's an alternative if you don't want to do the composition first. Alright, so looking at another one. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to plug negative 6 into f of x. When I plug that in, I'm going to get negative 6 squared plus 8. Well, this is 36. 36 plus 8 is 44. Once you have that value, you're going to plug that value into h of x. So what I'm going to have is h of 44, which means I'm going to do 5 times 44 minus 3. And I'm not trusting my mental math today, so let me double check. 5 times 44 is 220, and then minus 3 to get 217. Okay. Alright, one more. Now, f of h of negative 3. So first I'm going to do h of negative 3. So that's 5 times negative 3 minus 3. So that's negative 15 minus 3 to get negative 18. Then I'm going to take and plug that value. So I plug negative 3 into here. Then I'm going to plug that answer into f of h, or f of x. So f of negative 18 means I'm going to do negative 18 squared plus 8. And that is not one I have memorized, so negative 18 squared plus 8 gives me 332. Alright, so that is composition of functions.